election, what? Continue. Sorry about that. Okay, what happens first is the nomination phase, and that lasts for a week. And how that works is this: anybody who's a member of the group that's holding the election, let's say you're a member of Mos Eisley Base, and you want to elect a BCO, or you want to stand for BCO. What you would do, you can nominate yourself if, okay, let me back up. To stand for an office, you had to be a Legion member in good standing for at least a year, or been a member and in good standing within the last year. So say you joined September 1st of 2020. As of September 1st, 2021, you would be eligible to stand for office because you have had completed a year of service in the Legion. So you don't have any positions, you're brand new, and you want to run for BCO. You can nominate yourself, but you have to have somebody to second you. So somebody else has to come in and say, I agree, I second the motion for this person to become BCO, to be nominated for BCO. If you are already base commanding officer and you want to run again, you can just say, I want to run again. You don't need a second. So that takes care of that process. And that works for all the LCO, all the way down to detachment level, base level detachments. So your local temple, your local squadron, etc. Okay. That lasts approximately a week. So it starts officially this coming Monday, which I believe is the 12th. Somebody check that right quick.
Yes, 12th is Sunday, so 13th is Monday.
Okay, so 13th. So September 13th is when it officially kicks off. So it'll be September 13th for whoever is conducting the election for that particular office. So for some of them that are in the future, like Jenna, Seb, Sarah, and whatnot, you'll start to see that stuff pop up on the 12th for those of us that are here in the past. So like I said, it'll last for a week. If only one person is nominated for a position and they accept, then that's it. The election is over for that office. They are elected by default. And if there is multiple and they've both accepted, then we go to the question and answer phase. And that lasts, for the question part of it, it lasts a week. And then the candidates have an extra 2 days to respond to questions after that. But in between that time, or I guess in addition to that time, I guess you could say, it's extra time. The voting already begins while they still have they have time to answer questions. So that's basically how it works. In the question and answer session, questions have to be addressed to all candidates. You don't get to single anyone out. If you have a question that's relevant, I mean, go ahead and ask it, but it has to be directed at all candidates. So there you go. Trying to think what else. As I kind of mentioned, I'm going to be dividing the assignments up between my assistants, myself, and members of Legion Council. So you'll see various people who are not cogs conducting elections. However, nobody who is directly affected, like say LCO, Bill Holmes is not going to be conducting his own election. So nobody who has stake in that particular election is going to be overseeing it. So it'll always be overseen by a neutral party. That's the election process in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything I need to clarify?
May I ask a loaded question, Tim?
Roy.
What's the policy on campaigning during elections?
There is no such thing as campaigning. It is not allowed. You cannot go out anywhere and say, vote for me, or anything of the like. Once the election starts, that's it. I mean, you're not allowed to do any sort of campaigning. It's just put yourself out there to stand for the office, and that's it. You're not allowed to do any sort of campaigning whatsoever. Thank
As
you.
of right now, we have no questions in the chat. We have a question.
No, it
It's
is
telling
not.
people the election is happening, campaigning.
No, it is not considered campaigning. You can tell people that the election is happening. However, if you are standing for that office, you would be better off not mentioning that you are doing so. Just say, hey, the election's underway. Go take part. Here are the links. And just leave it at that. And that way you are clear of any accusations of campaigning. You're just putting the information out there.
Okay. Next question. Do members have to be a member of that base for 1 year or just of the Rebel Legion at large?
That is a good question. I would say basically for the bases, you have to be a member of the Legion at large. If you just transferred into the base, say a day before, technically it would be allowed. I don't think your chances would be very good, but there's nothing against it in the charter. I'll put it that way. There's nothing against it in the charter or the SOPs. And as for the detachments, that's up to the individual detachment charters as to what their qualifications are, aside from obviously being a member of that detachment.
I have another question, but it looks like Jenna will cover that in the next segment. Okay, question came in here, besides the one Jenna will handle in the next segment. How do you make sure that no one who administers right, how do you make sure that no one with administrator right who's running for an office cannot actually interfere with the election it is running for?
Well, typically what we do is administrative rights for LCO and Legion Council are disabled during the election. So they don't have the ability to go in and make any changes or oversee anything outside of verifying results in their own individual elections that they're overseeing, which won't happen until after the election's over anyway. If I'm understanding what you're asking correctly. So nobody who's currently standing for office and is holding that same office will have the ability to interfere in the election process behind the scenes, as far as manipulating the databases or anything like that.
Getting a thanks thumbs up, Tim. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to the next segment?
If anybody does think of questions later on, feel free to message me on the forums. Username is Strider, like the Lord of the Rings character. Or email cog@rebellegion.net.com. No, rebellegion.net, I think. I'll double check that and we'll clarify in the chat. But yeah, if anybody has questions later on that they didn't think of right now, just message me and I'll try and get to you as quick as I can. Thank you.
I actually got a couple that just popped in.
I should be coming. Okay, very good. Rebellegion.com.
Okay. See. Nomination start. I believe that was September 13th, is what you said, Tim.
12:01 a.m. Some of them will show up if depending on who's doing what. It might show up earlier because they're in a different time zone. But wherever they're at, it'll be the 13th.
Okay, next question. Does the candidate have to have no active reports against them? Question mark, clarification, question mark.
No, repeat that.
Does the candidate have to have no active reports against them? Question mark, second part, clarification, question mark.
Okay.
2 questions.
As I said, to stand for office, they have to be a member of good standing. If, say, you are on probation for some reason, then you are not allowed to stand for office. As for cases currently pending, if there are any, the COG office does not comment on that sort of thing. But everything should be wrapped up by election start. If there is anything going on, it'll be wrapped up by election start, one way or the other.
We have a good one from Caitlin. I know this question pops up in the sister club elections all the time. To clarify, since it has been a question in the past, if a person nominates you, if one person nominates you and you accept, that is the same as you nominating yourself and someone else seconding. Yes? Question mark.
If you do not nominate yourself and somebody else nominates you and you accept, that is okay.
Scanning through one last time. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, asking additional clarification, Tim, that you don't need 2 seconds if you nominate yourself. So if you nominate yourself, you just need 1 second.
You only need 1 second, period. Anything else, I will usually delete or at least edit out and put a comment in there saying you only need 1, just to eliminate any possibility of campaigning or favoritism. So you just need, if you are nominating yourself, you need 1 more person to second you. If somebody else nominates you, you do not need a second.
Yes, another question just popped up. If you are seeking to run for re-election,
You do not need a second. If
you
you
just
are
need to say, I intend to run again.
you do not need a second. You basically are considered automatically nominated unless you decide otherwise.
Okay. Another question coming. How do we know in which time zone the moderator of your time zone is at? It might be useful to know for the last minute voters.
Good question. I can post once I get everything done, because I haven't actually gone through and broken everything up yet, because I just haven't had time. I've been at Dragon Con and other things going on. Once I get everything up or divided up and ready to go, and I tell everybody what their assignments are, I can post the day of the election who's got what assignment and what time zone they're in. Keep in mind, things could change. Something could come up and somebody else has to take over, or something happens and they're not able to do it when they thought they would be able to. If that happens, I will go. It might not get posted right away, but it will get posted before the close of, say, nominations and Q&A, and of course, voting, I will make sure that at each stage of the process that is kept up to date. But that's an excellent point, and I hadn't thought of that before, but thank you for raising that. I'll make sure that that's posted.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on? The problem I see is if I tell our base members you can vote until ... So I think valid concern there.
Yeah, well, that's why I said I will post.
Could I make a comment, Tim?
Fire away.
So I've had to run some as delegated as a DCO in the past, and the text that I was given had a fill in the blank for this election will run until 12:01 insert time zone. And
Correct.
so I always make sure when I posted those to put my time zone on the end, so that that head post that they're running the election is should, as long as the person who's running it remembers to edit that, should
Yeah.
have the time zone that that's
It
being
should,
run in.
yes. If the text should all be there, but just to be on the safe side, I will post who's got what. I mean, it should be there for your local base or your whatever detachment you're doing. And that reminds me, as far as your local detachments, your base level detachments, that is up to your detachment commander. So the head of raid, the head of RLSC, etc., they're responsible for running the base level detachment elections. So that's an important point I forgot about, and thank you for that was a good way to jog my memory. So thank you.
Okay. All right, there's some great questions here. Please keep pumping the questions in there and we will address those. But thank you, Tim, for answering all those questions and explaining the process. But we'll move on to the next segment. Move over to Jenna, who will start explaining the different roles and the qualifications for those roles. Tagline there for the question, Jenna. The different roles that we'll be electing here in about 1 week. So over to Jenna.
Great. So I will talk through a couple of these, but we're going to be talking today about the roles that are directly elected. The next webinar tomorrow, I believe, is the ones that are appointed. So starting with the big one is the Legion Commanding Officer, the LCO. This one, as well as the LAC, have the same requirements, the Legion Administrative Council, and this is slightly more than what Tim was describing, given the role of this. So if one wants to run for LCO, you need to have 2 years or more of active membership and meet at least one of the following prior experience criteria. So either you could have 1 full term of experience in a qualifying elected position, which is BCO, base commanding officer, outpost commanding officer, or detachment commanding officer, or at least 10 consecutive months in the same qualifying appointed position, which is captain of the guard, Legion membership officer, Legion public relations officer, Legion merchandising officer, Legion webmaster, Legion custom judge, Legion executive officer, base executive officer, outpost executive officer, and detachment executive officer. And so you need to have, again, a little bit more experience to run for one of those 2 roles. So what does the LCO do? The LCO is the head of the Rebel Legion and serves as a figurehead and spokesperson for the Rebel Legion as the primary point of contact for Lucasfilm, as well as all of our partner costuming organizations and the public. The LCO is responsible for the overall vision and the direction of the Rebel Legion and looks forward towards the future of the Rebel Legion while delegating the various details to various administrative staff, command staff, and members. In this role, the LCO operates as the top policymaker and administrator for the Rebel Legion. So one of the key things to remember for the LCO, and as we'll talk about a little bit later, the executive committee, they may not serve on any other appointed or elective roles at that time, except for ones that are a part of wrapped into their role as LAC or LCO. So you can't be the LCO and your base CO at the same time. For example, you couldn't even be a squadron CO at the same time. So there have been cases where folks were running for two things, and when they got elected to LCO or LAC, they had to give up the other thing. So then we did a little bit of interviewing with our current members. And so I asked Bill what his current workload is like. So as you're thinking about if you want to run for this or if you want to nominate someone, knowing what you're getting into. Currently, Bill is saying that it's like a part-time job. It's about 3 hours a day for him. There are a lot of long-term projects that we see visibly, such as Rebelthon or overseeing elections. There's composing reports for the members to show transparency, as well as there's various planned meetings with various committees and leaders. But what really the huge part of it is the constant flow of daily communications within the Rebel Legion and partner organizations. Bill was saying he gets about 50 messages a day that he's just communicating with people. And he says that it's a lot of it is sometimes it's mediating informal conflicts before things spiral up and need to go to Tim and the captain of the guard team. It's nipping things in the bud before they get difficult. And it's a lot of pointing people in the right direction towards the right contact for the question that they have. Also, it's a lot of delegating and finding the right person to answer those questions or the right person to work on a project. When I asked him what he said his favorite part of the job was, he said it's wonderful to just talk with the members and hear about what the club means to them and watching them pursue that hobby they love, as well as being able to really foster the space where so many people are able to live out that favorite part of the Rebel Legion experience. The hardest part of the job is discipline in cooperation with the LAC and the Rebel Command Council. And it's the weight of remembering that there are humans that will be affected by the decisions that are made. And it always feels a little bit hard because you know those decisions will affect at least 2 people. And it's remembering to bring that compassion and mercy and hesitance and grace to the table, even in messy and challenging situations. So what makes a good LCO candidate? It's someone who's really good at listening and communicating, and someone who approaches leadership through a perspective of service and stewardship. It's someone who's flexible, accessible, responsive to questions and needs as they arise. And it's someone who can work with people with grace and positivity, who's able to support and encourage, as well as deal firmly and fairly when something nasty appears. So that's what we know about the LCO. Has Seb joined us yet, or shall I plow on with the next one?
I am not. Let me check. I don't see Seb online. Let me double check.
All right, so we'll hop on to, I'll just go through all of these positions and then we can take questions at the end in general once we're done with going through all of them. Next is the DCO. This is one I can speak to a little bit more, as I spent 6 years as the Galactic Senate DCO. So the DCOs, to be able to run to be a DCO, you need to be a member of the detachment that you would like to run for, which generally requires you to have at least one approved formal costume in that category. So if you haven't already posted in the I would like to join this detachment thread, the cutoff to do that is frozen during September. So if you're not already a part of the detachment you'd like to run for, unfortunately you can't now. So you'll have to wait until next year. But there's a lot of members of all the different detachments. So look and see who's there and nominate and volunteer. So what does a DCO do? This is, I think, one of the more misunderstood or understood positions. So DCO generally oversees the operations of their detachments. You add new members when folks want to join. You foster detachment community. This looks different in different detachments because we've got everything from KJO, the Jedi Order, and the Starfighter Command that have several thousand members, all the way down to the Rogue Detachment, which has less than 20. And so what does that mean for the different detachments? Some of that's social media, that's Facebook groups, it's contests, it's trooping and membership rewards programs, it's collecting and sharing tutorials. That really depends on the kind of community and the sort of character of the community that you have. The DCOs also advise Legion commanders and administrators officers on matters relating to their particular detachment. They supervise the writing and revisions of costume standards for their category. They act as moderators in the detachment subforms and the costume categories. They also can recommend qualified candidates for the role of LCJ, Legion Costume Judge, to the Legion Membership Officer as that's needed. They also may build or manage their detachment websites with reference images. They oversee the production and sale of detachment merchandise. They help bases and outposts form new local subunits, including shepherding the proposed logos through the logo approval process. They run elections of the local subunit leaders in September, and they can appoint detachment staff to help them run these things. So as you can see, the detachments are in some ways a microcosm of what the Legion is as a whole. So it can be a lot, but it also doesn't have to be if you have a good team working with you. I would say when I was doing it, it was 4 to 8 hours a week of work. And a big part of it was just checking the forums daily or every other day to respond to member posts of questions they had. Sometimes it's where can I find this? Sometimes it's how can I make this? And sometimes it's just cheering people on saying, that's great, way to go, making the next step in your build thread. And sometimes, a lot of times it was someone would ask me a question, I don't actually know the answer. And so you go and you find the right person to answer those questions. For example, if somebody was working on a Padme costume I'd never made before, but they wanted to know where to buy the fabric, I don't have those answers, but I can look down the list of all of the build threads that folks have done recently and find someone who might and try and connect them. Writing and revising standards plus moderating those standards discussions is one of the biggest time sinks of the current process. And there are a ton of standards, and there always will be a ton of new standards to do. I would say that I can write about a new standard in about an hour, but it takes just about as long to go through and double check somebody else's that someone would submit to you and say, hey, is this okay? Can we move it forward? Another thing is to manage the teams of detachment staff. It's getting help from those detachment members is really a must if you want to be able to do that full range of community building and technical work. And so you need to be able to work as a team and trust and delegate those people to follow through, but also be able to keep checking in on them to make sure they have the support that they need. And it's incredibly helpful to appoint a DXO whose strengths complement your own weaknesses to help fill in some of those gaps. I think my favorite part about being a DCO was being able to collaborate with and support people from all over the world. That's a really unique piece of being part of at the detachment level. And it's really amazing to get to watch people put together and show off their amazing costumes and just being able to geek out with them about your favorite type of costume. The hardest parts, I would say, is ultimately it's the responsibility. The responsibility for the community and functioning of the detachment falls on you as the DCO. So if you can't find someone to delegate a duty to, it falls to you to do it. And that can be kind of tough sometimes. And it's both, and the other thing that I think is hard, but is both hard and rewarding, is standards are tough. It's a very, very long process and it's pretty intensive, but at the same time, it's really rewarding to know that since costume standards are such a central point to how we enter into the Rebel Legion, it's really rewarding to know that you've polished something up and put it on the web for everyone to see. And what makes a good DCO candidate? Someone who has the vision for the kind of community that they want to foster in that particular detachment. It's someone who likes researching new costumes that they might not understand to be able to help other new members. Someone who's good at making connections between members to share that expertise. And someone who's not afraid to delegate and good with volunteer management, as well as someone who's not afraid to roll up their sleeves and just get work done, like standards. So then one side on that is Tim mentioned is the local subgroup leaders. And those are your base or outpost squadron, temple, squad, delegation, command post, hangar bay, clan, union, or station. And the only requirement for these folks is that they're active members in good standing in your base or outpost and are a member of the detachment that subgroup falls under. This one doesn't have you could be brand new to the Legion and run for this. This doesn't have a 1-year requirement to it. And the local subgroups are basically what you make of them. Their only requirement, looking over the detachment charters, is mainly that they maintain a list of members in the subgroup. And these are also the folks who would oversee any merchandise runs if you wanted to do local patches, And it's the folks who are trying to build local community around that costume type, which I've seen folks doing build groups or how-to demonstrations, or just encouraging the other local members making that type of costume. So please do remember to nominate someone in those categories or volunteer. Every year we have the risk of having to disband some of those if no one volunteers. So please, please volunteer someone. We don't want to have to disband any units. And then moving on to the Charter Review Committee. This group are the folks that look over charter amendment proposals that get submitted by members of the Rebel Legion, and they shepherd those proposals through the process. So any active Rebel Legion member can submit those proposals, and then the committee, the Charter Review Committee, will then review those proposals, tweak them and revise them, and then either reject the proposal or put it forward to the members to vote. And then once the members vote and have a discussion, before the members vote, there's a discussion. The Charter Committee takes it back, looks at the points that folks have said in the discussion, perhaps makes any revisions based on member feedback, sends it back out for another discussion, and then a vote. And so the Charter Committee's role is really looking at it and seeing if it is in alignment with the current charter. Does it not conflict with anything existing in the charter? Does it not duplicate something else in the charter? Is it appropriate given the other rules that we have set out? And the Charter Review Committee members are not specifically required themselves to be creating amendments. They can in their capacity as a normal member, and then those amendments will get passed through that same process. But the Charter Review Committee is more for the quality control and technical review before things get passed through. So the Charter Review Committee is interesting in that there's 5 members and they're all appointed slightly differently. One of them is the LXO, and that's appointed by the LCO, the Legion Executive Officer, and the LXO acts as chairperson. And then there are 4 members who are directly elected. One of them is an active member from the United States, and that person is elected by active Legion members from the US. One is a active member not in the United States, and that person is elected by active members not from the US. Then you also have one member who is a base or an outpost commander, and they're elected from base and outpost COs and XOs. And then you have the final member is a representative from the detachments and LCJs. So anyone who is elected detachment CO this year, as well as any Legion costume judges currently at this time, that can run and then will be elected by the LCJs and the detachment COs and XOs. And so all members of the committee have to be active members in good standing and have strong English skills, as that's the primary language that the charter is written in. And so the workload for the charter committee really varies. It depends on if there are any proposals currently in. When there's a proposal in, it can be a little bit more, especially in the phase of moderating and then responding to the comment period, can be quite a lot of work, but it really is up and down depending on how many proposals are coming through. I think my favorite part about sitting on the charter committee is it's really fascinating to deeply understand the functions of how the Rebel Legion works and really feel like you're contributing to that lasting legacy of the structure of the Rebel Legion. Probably the hardest part is weighing all of those opinions during the discussion period and really figuring out what critiques are the most important to address and what critiques might have to be addressed in a separate amendment and what things are not necessarily relevant to the current discussion. And that's tough because everyone has valid opinions. Folks can get very emotional during charter amendment discussions. And that's at times a little bit challenging to put your own feelings aside on that and really moderate with a clear head. What makes a good charter review committee candidate? It would be someone who has extra time and energy on top of their other positions, specifically for the BCO and the base and outpost representative, as well as the judge and the DCO representative. It's also someone who's deeply familiar with the Legion Charter and other documentation like the detachment charters, or someone who's willing to study them deeply to really get their head in how it works. And it's generally somebody with a good sense of detail is a good candidate for this. So those are the 3.5 positions that I'm introducing. It looks like Seb has joined us. Shall we turn it over to him?
Over to
Hey,
you,
Jenna.
Seb. Welcome, Seb.
So we're going to start with the Legion Administrative Council. Unless if there's any specific question to it, I'll just go through the walkthrough on what are the roles on the LAC and I guess the qualities needed for that. Then
Yeah, I'm queuing up all the questions. I'll bump all of them at the end after you're finished with the LAC explanation.
cool, thank you. So for the LAC, I guess, well, the Legion Administration Council is, they are literally a group of very capable administrative team who are helping the Legion officer. So the roles are within the LAC is that there is a Legion commanding officer, there's a base command liaison, and then there are 5 representatives. And additional to that is that all of them, they have a voting right, and it is all then how do I say, it's there is also an oversight by the COG to make sure that everything goes okay. The main responsibility of the LAC is to advise the LCO of the RL in terms of business matters and to assist the LCO in developing or implementing governing Rebel Legion policies and procedures. They do participate in disciplinary proceedings to make sure that everything goes okay. And at the same time, the LAC also reviews and approves detachment charters review. Other work as well is also to review and approve changes to SOP. And at the same time, on top of all that is to work on performing any other administrative duties assigned by the LCO. To qualify for any election or any position of the LAC, an RL member must be at least 2 years or more as an active member, and at least has one of the following criteria. That means a full year experience of at least a qualified Legion position, or at least 10 months consecutive position in a qualified Legion position, or at least then to qualify as a base commanding officer, outpost commanding officer, detachment commanding officer. And then on top of that, also qualifies as position as captain of guards, Legion membership officer. So as long as this person qualifies for any of the Legion roles, he or she then would have the qualification to nominate to as part of the LAC. What I want to share now is something, the 4 questions that Jenna shared as well in terms of what are the workload of the LAC, the best and less favorite parts of the LAC, and potentially what are the good qualities that make for a good candidate. The workload of a LAC member varies because sometimes it could be just 15 minutes during the day, reading through messages, any of the charters that is being reviewed, or any SOPs that are being reviewed, checking through forums to make sure everything is okay. Unless then it comes to any specific special projects, then person then will have to put in some hours, either as part of the specific project member, or if not, just to administer. So it varies from time to time, but it also varies according to what is the workload that is being assigned by the LCO as well. Some of the information that we have in terms of the best parts or the favorite parts is that as an LAC member, you really get a chance to work with everybody across the world, and you get a chance to work with a lot of events and projects across the world. So it's an opportunity to meet with a lot of people, interact with a lot of members, and an opportunity then really to be part of special events. Least favorite or worst part of being LAC is because it's a global team. You may need then sometimes to be working on events or meetings that are happening at odd hours. So sometimes waking up really at early morning or working through late at night because you're trying to communicate with people across the other side. Good quality of a candidate really would be somebody who's, i.e. like a project manager, a good communicator, but at the same time, as long as somebody who's willing to be part of a good team member, he or she then could play a role within the LAC, because then it's really trying to share what you can or using any of your good skills to provide any of the administrative support. That's what I've covered so far for LAC. So Randy, just to check if there's any other questions coming in from there.
Got a few questions. First, we have a Bravo Zulu to the detachments regarding the proving of the standards is very important. So thank you for noting that, Jenna. Bravo Zulu there. They have a comment, Jenna already addressed it, but I'll make sure it's stated here for the recording. Some of the detachments websites are still under construction. Those detachments, the leaders, that project would be to build a new website, while some need to be updated. So thank you, Jenna, for commenting on that. One question did come up, came in a while back, but I've been honing your queue is, if you're elected to a Legion level position, are you allowed to run a minor role at a base command? Example being social media manager for a base. If you're in the LAC or a LCO, can you still help with the social media or a assistant job such as that?
My understanding of the charter, and this might have to go all the way to the COG team, is you can't. It says that you are not allowed to hold any other positions.
So once you're in a Legion role, then if you are or were holding on to any base or outpost position, and sorry, the other way around. If you wish to be elected in a Legion role, once you are elected in a Legion role, then you have to relinquish any positions that you have on a base or a outpost level.
The same is true at detachment level.
Yeah, otherwise it could be a bit of a conflict of interest. So it's really, once you're in a Legion level, then the attention requires you to focus as an overall rather than to your specific base, outpost, or detachment.
Oh, to clarify, you can look in the Rebel Legion Charter on the job descriptions, and it does say specifically which ones you aren't allowed to hold others, and it's the LCO, the LAC, and the LXO, correct, Seb?
Yep.
Some of the other positions, like I'm sitting as an assistant Legion membership officer, I'm allowed to be the webmaster for a detachment because that's not a barred one.
Yeah, Jenna, we have a question that popped in here. Can you point where in the charter that restriction is noted at? What part of the charter that would be in?
So there aren't any restrictions of DCOs not holding other positions. It looks like that was the question. So DCOs can hold base level positions, but DCOs cannot be on the LAC. If someone's on the LAC, they need to give up being DCO, for example. As to exactly where, if you want, I can share screen and navigate you all.
You have the power.
Okay, so we're going to look at the charter since I always have this handy. So we're going down the Legion Charter, and it's in SOP 3 is the job descriptions of the Legion level positions. So we click on SOP 3 and we'll see here all of the appointments and restrictions. Here we have the LCO may not hold any other positions. And so in SOP 3, we have all of the main Legion level roles. And so you can look to see under any of these if there are specific restrictions and specific job descriptions.
Actually, you highlighted a key word to answer one of the question: elected or appointed positions. So kudos to the charter committee that put that together to make sure the right wording's there, Jenna. Okay, all right, so we will open it back up to questions. Now we're kind of at the last stage of our presentation tonight. Any other questions that anybody in the audience would like to bring up? The floor is open.
I believe Seb had one more position to
Did you have
describe.
another one, Seb?
Yeah, I got one more, which is for the BCO.
That's right. How can we
Yeah,
forget
but,
that
yeah,
one?
Unless if there's any other question, then we can check on BCO as well.
We have nothing in the queue, so go for it.
Okay. All right. Then, so the last position we have here for today is the base command officer or the outpost command officer. So the BCO or OCO is actually an elected person by the unit, and he or she then should have good standing in terms of they must be a resident of the country that they are being elected for, at least have 1 full year of active membership prior to the election. And they must also remain, they must also be a member of the unit which they command and remain for the duration of the term. So if it's for 1 year, then you must be there. The key duties of the BCO is really you are responsible for the organization of all official Rebel Legion events taking place in your territory, either by directly coordinating, or if not, if you have designated either an event officer and so forth, at least then you are supervising it. They do then have, as a BCO, have responsibility and power over what is to make sure that you're responsible for events that are appropriate for Rebel Legion under the LFF guidelines, and to make sure that the image and reputation of Rebel Legions are always intact. So the BCO then may reject any event or request if it's inappropriate. And at the same time, the BCO can delegate event planning to any members in their unit, so that then you're empowering another team. So it could be, say, for example, your base membership officer. But then again, is that, for example, in Singapore, we do have like an event officer. So that was created as a role so that then the person can coordinate planning of events. The BCO also stays informed on activities and interests of the unit. So it includes communicating with the unit members, with regular postings, but at the same time reading the unit's forum on the global forum, RL forum. So I guess the BCO is also a communicator. So it's really somebody who's keeping in touch with the team member across the base, making sure everybody is staying updated, but at the same time also getting feedback from the members to make sure that there is communication and updates across as well. BCO may create and sell merchandise for their unit, providing that it follows the Rebel Legion guidelines for merchandise. That's on Article 4 in terms of promotion and merchandising. The BCO may also should also resolve internal disputes to the base, and if required, then make it known to captains of the guards and also Legion Administrative Council. in case of any dispute that goes in violation of the charter. Okay. BCO, let's see. May also BCO locally can also add any rules or regulation in their local base, so long as it is not in violation of the RL policy, to make sure that then there could be rules specifically for their base. And with the BCO, then there are other roles that will be supporting him or her, i.e. the executive officer. So these are members that the BCO would appoint. So then the XO is then there to support the CO. Then there are other roles commonly in the roles and responsibility of the charter, which is the membership officer, and also outpost or base webmaster. Okay, these are the standard roles that have been made known in the guidelines, and to provide an overview to the BCO when they are elected, the types of role that they may appoint as part of to support him or her as part of the base command. Then now to share in terms of for any interested parties for what are the typical workload of a BCO. If it's I guess pre-COVID, it could be very busy because to the respective base you could have a lot of event or appearance requests. So then for now, I guess it's more of, because of COVID, for specific countries, if gatherings are not allowed, then I guess the workload of the BCO is more of just keeping in touch with the members, making sure everybody is well informed, and finding opportunities to keep the members engaged with the minimum opportunity to suit up. Some of the other workloads are really depending on the size of your base. If it's an outpost, of course, it's an opportunity then to really be engaging, getting on new members so that you grow to become a base. Once it's a base, then it depends how big the base is and how much he or she wish to engage or keep the base engaged in terms of communication. So it could be sometimes a week, within a week, an hour or so within the week, just to make sure that you're putting in the time to communicate with the base. Then coming back to, I guess, the good part of the role is really it is an opportunity to lead a base, to collaborate with other detachments, other costuming groups, to create events or joint events, sometimes an opportunity to be in charitable events where you can help to raise funds. The other ones is like there's an opportunity then really to work and build a new community. Least favorite part, of course, when a base grows, there's always going to be challenges because we're all people, it's all human, and sometimes people tends to like to do things their own. So a BCO would also really be a people manager in some way, where you really need to have the personality in dealing with people, making sure that everybody understands that while there are things that we would like to do, there are still guidelines that they have to follow within the base and within the Legion. So that's one thing there. And really, if there's an opportunity, really when it comes to a point where you need to discipline a member, then it's really how do you escalate that to the COG and also the LAC to see, okay, how do we go about to resolve the issue. So that's one of the hardest part. And as a good candidate, really, then the candidate for BCO is really a people person who really likes to handle occasional difficult situation, but at the same time, somebody who's passionate about the passionate about the club, and really open and honest about wanting to do good for the Legion, and it's never about personal glory. That's what I've summarized so far as the key things that that is needed for a BCO, and what he or she would need to think about.
Okay.
Any question?
We did have a question, but it's going to go back to the local detachment question topic from a few minutes ago. If no one else runs and the current leader does not log into and accept the nomination to continue for another year, what happens? Does the current leader remain on, or is the local detachment disbanded?
It's a little bit messy, and it's kind of up to the global detachment leader. There's a clause, I think, in basically all of the detachment charters in which if a leader leaves, the DCO can appoint a new leader to a detachment. And so usually what would happen in those cases is this happens a couple times a year. And so what I would do is I would try to track down that member and say, hey, you've been reappointed. Do you accept? And oftentimes you can contact the BCO or the OCO or other people who you think know them, because maybe they're not active on the boards, to go track them down, to bring them in, to say, okay, yes, fine, I accept that nomination or that appointment. Another way you could do it is there's been some cases where somebody volunteers, but nobody seconds them. And so then you've got the standing person who doesn't re-volunteer, and then you've got someone who volunteered but wasn't seconded. That's another place where the BCO or where the DCO could choose to confirm and appoint the person who volunteered. And it's a messy little thing that often is done in contact with the BCO to see what the best way forward is. Does that answer the question? And it could be the choice if you can't find anyone. Like we had a choice of a base split when, I think it was when Midwest base split, the standing DCO moved to split with another base, and there wasn't a standing local delegation leader. And so that was one where it was really, where we really had to scramble and find somebody to volunteer to allow me to appoint them, so that one didn't get disbanded.
And thumbs up to the answer on that one, Jenna.
Okay.
Next question, either for either one of you. Can the base commanding officer also be a leader of a local detachment?
I've seen that happen several times.
Getting thumbs up and nods.
I think if I want to add on, I mean, Jenna, if so happen, if the BCO is also has an approved costume of that detachment, right? Then
yes,
he or she then can step in to be the lead. Of course, it would be of best interest to the detachment that then the BCO tries to I guess identify or groom somebody to take on the actual role, either within the term, or if not, sometimes in the next term.
Okay. Scanning for questions here, not seeing any new things pop up. I'm going down my list. I think we've hit all the roles and attachments. Oh, got one. All right, got a question coming.
we're hanging on.
It actually says hang on. Keep the questions coming, folks. We'll get to everybody. If you got one, bring it on. If I was faster, I could get some music playing, but
Well, just imagine there's music right now.
I was off walking on the beach. And I saw a twig. I saw a log. Next to the log was a twig.
Oh, there's the question.
Does it always necessarily have to have an assistant appointed? I'm assuming that is related to BCO or DCO
He says for a local temple, for example.
or local temple. Okay.
The detachment charters require you to do so. That said, at least in the Galactic Senate, I saw that about half of my delegation leaders neglected to do so every year. And there isn't any repercussions that are specifically said about it, but you should. It's in the charter that requires you to do so. So find a friend who's willing to put that on their titles.
Okay. Thumbs up. Okay. The floor is open for any questions here. We'll leave the floor open for a few minutes. So Seb or Jenna, while we're waiting for final questions, parting thoughts, wrap up from either of you.
If you're curious about a position, and ask the current one, see if they have any advice. Or if in the long term you're considering maybe I want to run for this role, considering offer to volunteer to help their team so that you can, maybe you're not ready to run for DCO, maybe you're not ready to run for BCO yet, but volunteer to help them out on their team. Then you can kind of see how it works and build your connections in that space.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, apart from just reading from what's on the charter, the best way is really to get in touch with your local team and really get a feel of it. Because being a member and being within the command team sometimes can be a bit different. It may not necessarily be as, I hope it's not as bad as what I've shared. It's not meant to be really super busy and adding on to everybody's lives. But as long as you have the passion for it, and there's a lot of good members within your team, good delegation and empowerment, the workload really spreads. As long as you're not hogging on to it, and as what I was sharing previously, as long as you're not doing it for personal glory, it's really good. It's fun. You get to meet a lot of people across the world, even within your local base. You get to be in an opportunity to be engaged in many events in the background. You get to see what is it like, and then you might have a bit more appreciation to say, maybe there are certain things that I can improve in future for my local events and so forth. So that could be an opportunity.
Okay, got another question pop up, but I will direct that to somebody offline regarding Zoom. So we'll answer your question, Darren, on that one regarding Zoom and why something didn't work right. But we will be, this has been recorded. It will be shared up, I believe, on the Rebel Legion Info Center here shortly. Once it gets done processing, it can be uploaded. So give it a few minutes, 30 minutes or so for it to get uploaded. I think that's all the questions. So I will wrap up and say I'm not a leader in the Rebel Legion. I hold a global position and local positions in the sister clubs. The positions, regardless of the club, are thankless. There are sometimes a lot of time you put in it, but it is the most rewarding work. Especially when big charities come in, people finish a difficult costume. You put a great show on stage. You work together at a big convention with all the clubs. It is a super rewarding position being a leader in any of these costume fan clubs. It is, and you get to meet and work with a lot of great people. I have friends from around the world, multiple continents, because of my positions in these clubs, and it's totally all worth it. So I have a note here that the next webinar is in about 48 hours for the Americas. That is September 9th. So I was asked to put that out there, but that is all we had for this meeting. As I previously stated, the recording will be posted here shortly. Once we hit stop, give it a few minutes to process and get uploaded. Know this one very well. Takes a little bit of time on that one. And I will make sure, Darren, we get that question over to those who put this together regarding the audio questions. With that, thank you, Zeb. Thank you, Seb. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Tim, who had to part off early. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. And good luck in the elections that start in just about a week. So with that, may the force be with you.
Thanks all. If you want to find me
Stay
with
safe,
follow-up
guys.
questions, you can find me on the boards as Song of Amazon. It's all one word. Otherwise, track me down. I'm around, happy to answer any other questions.
All right, stay safe, guys.